Nobody noticed the quiet girl in seat 12F. But when F-22 fighter jets appeared, she pulled out a military headset and spoke her call sign with authority. The elite pilots immediately obeyed. This 10-year-old commanded the most advanced jets in the world. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The airplane cabin was filled with the steady hum of engines. Flight 447 had been in the air for 3 hours, cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet. Passengers settled into their routines. Some read magazines, others watched movies, and a few dozed off with pillows pressed against the windows. In seat 12F sat a young girl, about 10 years old. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore a plain blue jacket and dark jeans. A small backpack rested under the seat in front of her. To anyone watching, she was just another child traveling alone. Flight attendants had checked on her twice, making sure she was comfortable. The man in the aisle seat beside her slept deeply. The woman across the row was busy typing on her laptop. Nobody paid attention to the quiet girl in 12F. But there was something different about the way she looked at the sky. Her eyes were sharp and focused, as if searching for something only she could see. The flight continued without incident. The captain made occasional announcements about weather and arrival time. Everything felt routine. Then, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, something changed. A distant sound, faint and far away. Most passengers didn't hear it. But the girl in 12F heard it immediately. She pressed her forehead closer to the window, scanning the sky. The sound grew louder. A deep, powerful roar. Now other passengers began to notice. People looked around nervously. Some pressed their faces to windows. A shadow crossed the side of the plane. Then another. Gasps spread through the cabin. Fighter jets. 2 sleek F-22 Raptors flying in formation alongside the aircraft. Their gray bodies gleamed in the sunlight. Panic rippled through the cabin. Why were military jets so close? Were they in danger? People began talking loudly. Children started crying. The flight attendants tried to calm everyone. The girl in 12F remained still. While everyone panicked, she calmly reached down and unzipped her backpack. She pulled out something that made the woman across the aisle freeze in shock. It was a military headset. Real equipment, worn and professional. The girl handled it with ease, fitting it over her head and adjusting the microphone. Her fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear and steady, carrying an authority that seemed impossible for a child. This is Shadow 1. Confirming visual contact. Formation received. Maintain escort pattern. The cabin fell into stunned silence. Every eye turned toward the girl in 12F. The sleeping man beside her woke up with a start. The woman across the aisle dropped her laptop. Even the flight attendant stopped moving, frozen in disbelief. Through the window, the F-22 Raptors adjusted their position. Their wings tilted slightly, and they moved into a tighter formation around the passenger plane. It was clear they were responding to her command. A voice crackled through the headset, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Copy that, Shadow 1. Standing by for further instructions. The words sent chills through everyone who heard them. These elite military pilots, flying the most advanced fighter jets in the world, were taking orders from a child sitting in economy class. The man beside her finally found his voice. What's happening? Who are you? The girl glanced at him briefly. Her expression was serious, far too serious for someone her age. Please stay calm, she said quietly. Everything is under control. But her words did little to calm anyone. Questions erupted throughout the cabin. How could a child command fighter jets? Why were they even here? Was the plane in danger? A flight attendant hurried down the aisle and knelt beside the girl's seat. Sweetheart, I need to know what's going on. Are you with the military? The girl kept her eyes on the window. I cannot explain everything right now. But those jets are here to protect this plane. They will follow my orders. Please ask everyone to remain seated and stay calm. The attendant's face went pale. She nodded slowly and stood up, backing away. She rushed toward the cockpit to inform the captain. Minutes passed in tense silence. Passengers whispered nervously to each other. Some tried to take photos of the fighter jets, but the flight attendants quickly reminded them to keep their phones in airplane mode. The girl sat quietly, her headset still on, listening to communications that only she could hear. Suddenly, her body tensed. Her hand gripped the armrest tightly. Through the headset, a voice spoke urgently. Shadow 1, we have an unidentified contact. 20 miles east and closing. Requesting orders. The girl's eyes went wide for just a moment. Then her expression hardened. She pressed the microphone close to her lips. Maintain defensive formation. Do not engage unless I give the order. Confirm acknowledgement. Acknowledged, Shadow 1. Holding position. The woman across the aisle leaned forward, her voice shaking. Is something wrong? Are we in danger? The girl turned to look at her. For the first time, emotion showed on her young face. Fear, responsibility, and determination all mixed together. There's another aircraft nearby. We don't know who it is yet. But you're safe. I promise you're safe. The captain's voice came through the intercom, trying to sound reassuring. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are experiencing an unusual situation, but everything is under control. Military aircraft are escorting us as a precaution. Please stay seated with your seatbelts fastened. His words did little to ease the growing panic. Parents held their children close. People gripped their armrests with white knuckles. The atmosphere in the cabin grew heavy with fear and uncertainty. The girl focused entirely on the sky outside. Her training took over, pushing away any fear she might have felt. She had been prepared for moments like this, even though she had hoped this day would never come. Through the window, passengers could see the F-22 Raptors shifting their formation. They moved with incredible precision, creating a protective shield around the commercial plane. Two jets positioned themselves on each side, while others adjusted altitude above and below. The headset crackled again. Unknown contact now 15 miles. Not responding to identification requests. Appears to be military-class aircraft. Orders, Shadow 1. The girl closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. When she opened them, her gaze was steady and clear. Continue tracking. Weapons ready but hold fire. I repeat, hold fire until my command. Understood, Shadow 1. The man beside her was trembling now. Please, he whispered. Please tell me what's happening. Is someone going to attack us? The girl looked at him with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. I don't know yet, she admitted quietly. But if they try anything, those jets will stop them. You have to trust me. Long minutes passed. Every second felt like an hour. The cabin was so quiet that the only sounds were the engines and the occasional sob from frightened passengers. Everyone watched the girl in 12F, this mysterious child who somehow held their lives in her small hands. Then the headset spoke again, more urgently this time. Shadow 1, unknown aircraft now 10 miles and maintaining intercept course. We need a decision. The girl's jaw tightened. She knew what was at stake. One wrong decision could cost hundreds of lives. But she also knew that firing first could start something much worse. Her father had taught her that patience and judgment were more important than quick action. All units, she commanded, her voice firm and clear. Form diamond defense pattern. Show weapons but do not lock on. Make them understand we are ready, but we are not the aggressor. Copy that, Shadow 1. Executing diamond formation. Through the windows, passengers watched in awe as the F-22 Raptors moved into a new formation. They created a diamond shape around the plane, their weapons visible but not yet targeting anything. It was a show of strength and restraint at the same time. The flight attendant who had spoken to the girl earlier returned, accompanied by the captain. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and a weathered face. He knelt beside her seat, speaking in a low voice. "Miss, I need to understand what's happening. Control Tower confirmed your call sign, but they gave me very little information." "Who are you?" The girl met his eyes. "My father was Commander James Morrison of the United States Air Force. He died 2 years ago in a classified operation. Before he died, he gave me his call sign, Shadow 1. It was supposed to be retired, but when I used it during an emergency drill, the military recognized it. They still honor it because of who he was and what he represented." The captain's face showed shock and understanding at the same time. "So when you give orders using that call sign, they follow them," the girl finished. "Because in their minds, they're still following Commander Morrison's orders. The call sign carries his authority, even if I'm just a child carrying his memory." The captain nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said quietly. "Emma Morrison." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Emma, I'm trusting you to keep everyone on this plane safe. Can you do that?" She nodded, though her hands were shaking slightly. "I'll do my best, sir." The captain returned to the cockpit. Emma turned her attention back to the window and the headset. The unknown aircraft was getting closer. She could feel the tension building with every passing second. "Shadow 1, the voice came through urgently. Unknown contact now 5 miles. It's matching our speed and altitude. This is not normal behavior. We strongly recommend defensive action." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. The moment when she had to make the hard choice. She thought of her father, of everything he had taught her. He always said that a good commander protects their people, but a great commander knows when not to fight. "All units, listen carefully," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Do not fire. I repeat, do not fire. But get closer. Let them see that we are ready. Let them know that if they threaten this plane, they will face the consequences. Make it clear without starting a war." There was a pause. Then the response came. "Understood, Shadow 1. That's a bold call. We're trusting your judgment." The F-22 Raptors moved closer to the passenger plane, tightening their protective circle. At the same time, 2 of them broke formation and flew directly toward the unknown aircraft. They didn't fire, but their message was clear. "Come any closer, and we will stop you." Passengers pressed against the windows, watching the drama unfold. Some were crying. Others prayed silently. Emma sat completely still, her young face showing no emotion, though inside she was terrified. Seconds ticked by like hours. The unknown aircraft continued approaching. 3 miles. 2 miles. Emma's finger hovered over the button that would give the final order to engage. Then, suddenly, the unknown aircraft turned away. It banked sharply to the left and began climbing, moving away from the passenger plane at high speed. Within moments, it was gone, disappearing into the distance. The headset crackled with relief. "Shadow 1, unknown contact is retreating. It's leaving the area at maximum speed. Threat appears to be neutralized." Emma let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her whole body relaxed, and for a moment, she looked like the child she truly was. Tired, scared, and relieved. "Good work, all units," she said softly. "Maintain escort until we reach safe airspace. Then you can return to base." "Copy that, Shadow 1. And ma'am, if I may say so, that was excellent judgment. You kept everyone safe without starting an incident. Your father would be proud. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away. Thank you, she whispered. The cabin erupted in a mixture of relief and confusion. People laughed nervously, hugged each other, and wiped away tears. The flight attendants moved through the aisles, checking on passengers and trying to restore some sense of normalcy. The woman across from Emma leaned forward, her voice filled with emotion. You saved us. That thing was going to attack, and you saved us. Emma shook her head. I didn't save you. Those pilots did. I just made sure they knew when to hold back and when to act. My father taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not pull the trigger. For the rest of the flight, people treated Emma differently. Some thanked her with tears in their eyes. Others just stared, still unable to process what they had witnessed. Children asked their parents who she was, and adults struggled to find answers. Emma removed her headset and tucked it back into her backpack. She returned to looking out the window, watching the F-22 Raptors flying alongside. They stayed with the plane for another hour before the lead pilot's voice came through one last time. Emma put the headset back on to hear his words. Shadow 1, we're approaching the handoff point. Local defense will take over from here. It's been an honor flying with you today. The honor was mine, Emma replied. Thank you for trusting me. Safe travels. You too, ma'am. Shadow 1 out. The fighter jets broke formation gracefully, one by one. They dipped their wings in a final salute before turning away and disappearing into the clouds. Emma watched them go, feeling both relieved and sad. As the plane began its descent toward the airport, the captain made a final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly. I want to thank you all for your patience and courage during today's unusual circumstances. There will be security personnel at the gate to answer any questions you may have. When the wheels touched the runway, the entire cabin burst into applause. But this time, many people were looking at Emma and clapping specifically for her. She felt her cheeks turn red with embarrassment. After the plane reached the gate, Emma waited for everyone else to leave first. The flight crew gathered around her, each one wanting to shake her hand or give her a hug. The captain knelt down to her level. Emma, there are some military officers waiting for you at the gate. They want to talk to you about what happened today. She nodded. She had expected this. Using her father's call sign would not go unnoticed. There would be questions, reports, maybe even consequences. As she walked through the jet bridge, Emma saw two Air Force officers in formal uniforms waiting for her. One was a woman with short gray hair and serious eyes. The other was a younger man with kind features. The woman stepped forward. Emma Morrison. Yes, ma'am. I'm Colonel Sandra Park. This is Major David Chen. We need to talk about today's events. Emma nodded again, looking small and vulnerable next to the tall officers. But when she spoke, her voice was clear. I understand, ma'am. I used my father's call sign without proper authorization. I'm ready to accept responsibility for that. Colonel Park's expression softened slightly. Actually, Emma, we're not here to reprimand you. The tower recorded all your communications today. Your decisions were sound, your judgment was excellent, and you potentially prevented a serious international incident. We're here to understand how a 10-year-old girl learned to command fighter jets like a seasoned officer. Emma looked down at her feet. My father trained me. He didn't mean to, not really. But I was always with him, always watching, always listening. He would practice scenarios at home, thinking out loud about tactical decisions. I absorbed everything. After he died, I couldn't let go of what he taught me. The call sign was the last connection I had to him. Major Chen spoke gently. Where were you going today, Emma? Who were you traveling to see? My grandmother, Emma said quietly. She lives in Boston. My mom died when I was little, so it's just me and Grandma now. She doesn't know about any of this. She thinks I'm just a normal kid." Colonel Park exchanged a glance with Major Chen. Then she knelt down to Emma's eye level. "Emma, what you did today was extraordinary. But it also raises serious questions. A civilian, especially a child, shouldn't have access to military communications or the ability to command fighter jets. This is a security issue." Emma felt tears threatening again. "Are you going to take it away? The headset, the call sign, everything?" The colonel hesitated. "That's not my decision to make alone. But Emma, you have to understand. This cannot happen again. What if you had made the wrong call? What if someone had died because a child was giving orders to combat pilots?" "I know," Emma whispered. "I know it was wrong. But when I heard the jets, I knew something was happening. I knew they might need guidance from someone with my father's authority. I couldn't just sit there and do nothing." Major Chen placed a hand on her shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think you made all the right calls today. But the colonel is right. This is bigger than just one incident." They talked for another 20 minutes, asking Emma questions about her training, her knowledge, and how she had acquired military equipment. Emma answered honestly, explaining that her father had given her the headset years ago, never imagining she would actually use it. Finally, Colonel Park stood up. "Emma, we're going to let you go see your grandmother today. But someone from the military will be in touch with both of you soon. We need to figure out what to do about this situation. In the meantime, I need you to give us the headset." Emma's heart sank, but she understood. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the worn military headset. It felt like losing another piece of her father. But she handed it over without protest. "Thank you, Emma," Colonel Park said, her voice kind but firm. "You showed remarkable courage and judgment today. Your father would be very proud. But you're still just a child, and you deserve to be a child. Let the adults handle these situations from now on. Okay?" Emma nodded, though tears were now streaming down her face. "Yes, ma'am." Major Chen walked with her to the arrivals area where her grandmother was waiting. The elderly woman rushed forward, pulling Emma into a tight embrace. "Oh, sweetheart. I was so worried. They said there was some kind of incident on your flight." Emma hugged her grandmother tightly, feeling safe for the first time in hours. "I'm okay, Grandma. Everything's okay now." As they walked toward the exit, Emma glanced back one more time. Colonel Park gave her a small nod of respect. Emma returned it, then turned away, letting her grandmother lead her home. In the days that followed, the story spread quickly. News outlets reported on the mysterious military escort and the unknown aircraft that had approached Flight 447. But details about Emma's involvement were kept classified. The military and the airline agreed that it was better to protect her identity. Some passengers talked about what they had witnessed, but without proof, their stories seemed too incredible to believe. A child commanding fighter jets? It sounded like something from a movie, not real life. Emma returned to her normal life, going to school and helping her grandmother around the house. But she was different now. She carried a secret that set her apart from every other kid her age. She had looked danger in the face and made decisions that saved hundreds of lives. Sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the stars and remember the feeling of wearing that headset. The weight of responsibility, the trust of those pilots, the legacy of her father. Part of her missed it terribly. Another part of her was relieved to just be a kid again. 3 months later, a package arrived at her grandmother's house. Inside was a letter from Colonel Park and a small wooden box. Emma opened the letter first. "Dear Emma," it read. "After careful consideration, the Air Force has decided to officially retire your father's call sign, Shadow 1. It will never be used again, in honor of both Commander Morrison and the young girl who carried his legacy with such courage and wisdom. Enclosed is a small token of our appreciation. You may not be in the military, but you are part of our family now. If you ever need us, we will be there. With respect and gratitude, Colonel Sandra Park. Emma opened the wooden box with trembling hands. Inside was a patch, beautifully embroidered. It showed the silhouette of an F-22 Raptor with the words Shadow 1 beneath it. Next to it was a small medal, nothing official, but clearly made with care and respect. She held the patch against her chest and smiled through her tears. Her father's legacy was safe. His call sign would be remembered. And she, little Emma Morrison, had proven herself worthy of carrying it, even if only for one remarkable day. That evening, Emma sat by her window, looking up at the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, pilots were flying their missions, protecting people who would never know their names. And now, Emma understood what that felt like. To serve in silence, to make hard choices, to carry responsibility without recognition. She was just a child who sat quietly in seat 12F. But for a few incredible hours, she had been something more. And that knowledge would stay with her forever, shaping the person she would one day become. The sky held no more secrets from her now. She had seen its dangers and its beauty. She had commanded its guardians and earned their respect. And though her days of giving orders were over, she knew that the lessons her father taught her would guide her for the rest of her life. Courage, judgment, responsibility, and knowing when not to fight. These were the gifts Commander Morrison had given his daughter. And on that unforgettable day above the Atlantic Ocean, Emma had honored those gifts perfectly. As darkness fell and stars began to appear, Emma whispered quietly to the sky. "I made you proud, Dad. I know I did." And somewhere in the vast expanse above, perhaps he was watching. Perhaps he knew. Perhaps he smiled. 2 years passed since that remarkable day over the Atlantic. Emma grew taller, her hair longer, but the memory of seat 12F remained vivid in her mind. She kept the Shadow 1 patch in a frame on her bedroom wall, a constant reminder of the day she became something more than just a child. Life continued normally on the surface. She attended middle school, made friends, and did homework like any other teenager. But inside, she carried knowledge that set her apart. She understood responsibility in ways her classmates never could. When they complained about small problems, Emma remained quiet, remembering the weight of hundreds of lives depending on her decisions. Her grandmother noticed the change. Emma was more serious now, more thoughtful. She watched the news differently, paying attention to international incidents and military reports. When planes flew overhead, she would stop and look up, tracking their movement with trained eyes. One afternoon, Emma received an unexpected visitor. Colonel Park arrived at their house in civilian clothes, carrying a folder under her arm. Her grandmother invited her in, offering tea while Emma sat nervously on the couch. "Emma," the colonel began, setting down her cup. "I came here with a proposal. The Air Force has been watching your progress. We've seen your grades, your behavior, your leadership skills at school. You're exceptional." Emma's heart raced. "What kind of proposal?" Colonel Park opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "We want to offer you a place in a special program. It's designed for young people who show extraordinary potential in military strategy and command. You would attend regular school, but receive additional training on weekends and summers. When you turn 18, if you choose, you could enter the Air Force Academy with advanced standing." Emma's grandmother gasped. "She's only 12 years old." "I understand your concern, ma'am," the colonel said gently. "But Emma has already demonstrated capabilities far beyond her years. We're not trying to turn her into a soldier. We're trying to nurture a gift. She could become one of the finest military minds of her generation." Emma looked at the papers, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately. It felt like honoring her father's memory, continuing his legacy properly. But another part remembered the fear she felt that day, the crushing weight of responsibility. can I think about it? Emma asked quietly. Of course, Colonel Park smiled. Take all the time you need. But Emma, I want you to know something. What you did on that plane wasn't just lucky. It was brilliant. Your tactical thinking, your restraint, your ability to read the situation. Those are skills that can't be taught easily. They're natural talents that your father clearly passed down to you. After the colonel left, Emma sat with her grandmother in silence. Finally, the old woman spoke. Your father would want you to choose your own path, sweetheart. Not the path he walked, but the one that makes you happy. Emma nodded, tears forming in her eyes. But what if this is my path, Grandma? What if I'm meant to do this? Her grandmother pulled her close. Then you'll do it, and you'll be amazing. But you don't have to decide today. You're still young. You have time. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the F-22 Raptors, the way they responded to her voice, the trust those pilots placed in her. She thought about her father, about all the stories he used to tell her about protecting people who would never know his name. The next morning, Emma made her decision. She called Colonel Park and accepted the offer. But she set her own conditions. She would join the program, but she would also remain a normal kid. She would have friends, go to parties, play sports, and live a regular life. The military training would be part of her world, not all of it. The years that followed were challenging but rewarding. Emma excelled in her studies, both regular and military. She learned advanced tactics, communication protocols, crisis management, and leadership skills. But she also learned something more important, balance. She made the school soccer team and scored the winning goal in the championship. She went to her first school dance and laughed with friends until her stomach hurt. She experienced heartbreak when her first crush liked someone else. She was a teenager, living a teenager's life, but with extraordinary preparation for her future. When Emma turned 16, Colonel Park visited again with news. There's going to be a ceremony at the Air Force Base. They're officially dedicating a memorial to your father. We'd like you to be there, and we'd like you to speak. Emma's hands trembled as she held the invitation. Speaking about her father in front of military officials and fellow pilots felt overwhelming. But she knew she had to do it. The ceremony was held on a crisp autumn day. Emma stood before a crowd of officers, pilots, and veterans, all wearing their dress uniforms. Behind her was a bronze plaque with her father's name and his call sign, Commander James Morrison, Shadow 1. Emma stepped up to the microphone, her voice clear and strong. My father taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right even when you're afraid. 4 years ago, on Flight 447, I learned what he meant. I was terrified, but I had to act because people needed me. She paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. Many had tears in their eyes. My father's call sign saved lives that day, even though he was gone. His legacy lives on in everyone he trained, everyone he inspired, and yes, in me. I'm proud to be his daughter. I'm proud to carry forward his values of courage, wisdom, and service. The crowd erupted in applause. Officers saluted. Even hardened veterans wiped their eyes. Emma felt her father's presence strongly in that moment, as if he was standing right beside her. After the ceremony, several pilots approached her. One older man with graying hair and kind eyes introduced himself. I flew with your father on his last mission. He talked about you constantly. Said you were the smartest person he knew, even at 8 years old. Emma smiled through her tears. He always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. The pilot nodded. He'd be incredibly proud of the young woman you've become. And Emma, I was one of the pilots escorting your flight that day. When I heard Shadow One's voice, even though it sounded young, I knew immediately it carried his spirit. You made the exact decisions he would have made. Those words meant everything to Emma. She had spent years wondering if she had done the right thing, if she had truly honored her father's memory. Now she knew she had. As the sun set behind the memorial, Emma stood alone for a moment, her hand resting on the bronze plaque. "I'm going to keep making you proud, Dad," she whispered. "Every single day." 2 years later, Emma graduated high school as valedictorian. She had been accepted to the Air Force Academy with full honors. On graduation day, she wore her cap and gown, but underneath, close to her heart, she wore the Shadow 1 patch. Her grandmother sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Colonel Park was there too, along with Major Chen and several other military officials who had followed Emma's journey. When Emma's name was called, the entire military section of the audience stood and saluted. Emma walked across the stage, received her diploma, and looked out at the crowd. She thought about that scared little girl in seat 12F, holding a headset with trembling hands. She thought about how far she had come, and how far she still had to go. In her valedictorian speech, Emma spoke about unexpected moments that change our lives. We never know when we'll be called to do something extraordinary. When that moment comes, we have two choices: shrink away or step forward. I learned that lesson at 10 years old, 35,000 feet in the air. I chose to step forward, and that choice shaped everything that came after. The audience listened intently as she continued. We all have a call sign within us. It might not be military. It might be teacher, doctor, parent, friend, or helper. Whatever it is, when that call sign is needed, I hope you'll have the courage to answer. Because that's how ordinary people become extraordinary. The applause was thunderous. Emma looked up at the sky, cloudless and blue, and smiled. She was ready for whatever came next. The little girl from seat 12F had grown into a young woman of strength, wisdom, and purpose. And somewhere in that vast blue sky, the spirit of Shadow 1 flew on, proud and eternal.